Hi YouTube, welcome back to another episode of Pixel Thoughts. This is a day late, but not a dollar short because I did have some work on my podcast that I host with a friend covering the NCT K-pop group and all of its subunits. But for today's thoughts, I've just been kind of thinking a lot about this whole situation with the author who, in a spree of just how to fumble the bag as fast as possible, decided to get on to Goodreads and create fake accounts and leave negative reviews for specifically authors of color who were having books released around the same times as hers, while also giving 5 stars to her own work. A lot of this requires some social media digging, but unfortunately, a lot of the major publications are trying to spin this as some sort of dangerous precedent to set that an author can have their work completely shut down because of bad behavior. But it's like, well, yeah, maybe we should shut down certain people, and they do need to experience consequences for their behavior. Because this lady, it wasn't it was a random targeting. She specifically went after authors who are more marginalized. And if you dig into her own Twitter account, you can see that she has had issues with not being. And this is the crazy thing, she's a white woman. I mean, I guess it's not crazy if you've dealt with white women and you kind of understand their whole stick when it comes to being oppressed. Like, women are an oppressed group and they understand that, but they're also still the highest on the terms of intersections by virtue of being white. And I know people get offended when people of color call white people white. They're like, oh, you're racist and this is reverse racism, which is strange because there's no such thing as reverse racism, because first of all, it would just be another form of racism, and secondly, you can't really be racist against a individual like that. Specifically, I have always subscribed to the definition of racism as prejudice plus power. And seeing as how white people are the ones who majority benefit from, or benefit within, the hierarchical society we live in, it's just not possible to be racist against white people. Because if you're not white, you're never going to have the ability to systemically oppress white people. In fact, I think white people are extremely afraid of a situation in which they are no longer the majority of people represented in media and government and societal structures, because they think that we'll treat them as they know they are treating us. Anyways, back to this woman. Her name is Kate something. She has a couple of tweets about how she believed that if certain authors were, non-white, they received special treatment. And also some tweets surface of her talking about how she doesn't see color, I think. Now, I don't have time to explain why the we don't see color thing doesn't work as a sort of, perspective to have on racism. But ultimately, my point here is that this lady specifically targeted people she thought were receiving unfair benefits over herself, even though she is a white woman who had one of the best book deals ever, and her book was going to be in a collection, so it was automatically going to be sold to subscribers of uh this book club, or I don't know what it's called. It's like a lumicary or something. And this woman is going after people who are just trying to live, like, it's hard to be a writer in general, and it's even harder to be a writer who is non-white. As we have seen, despite the efforts that have been put into place to increase authors being from diverse backgrounds, I'm sorry, it's still not meeting the mark. Like, there are still the publishing industry, both authors who are published and the industry itself, like publishers and editors, is still overwhelmingly white. So I don't know why this woman felt so incredibly insecure about her own work that she needed to add in this whole Goodreads scheme to make up for what she felt would have been unfair advantages of those authors she attacked. Ultimately, we come to the same conclusion that we usually do about people like this, which is maybe they just don't need to have access to certain things because they clearly don't know how to appreciate them. And that's why I think it's fine that the publishers and the book club subscription service decided to pull her work, because we shouldn't reward bad behavior. And people are like, oh, she's getting canceled unfairly, and like, we're silencing her writing. And to those people, I say, I bet you in 2 years, she will be publishing the same stuff under a different pen name and working overtime to hide that it's her. And she'll still end up getting her stuff published, and it wouldn't have mattered in the end. And the marginalized people that she attacked and tried to get their work trash, it won't matter. She like, to me, she's not showing any remorse. I mean, her apology itself was not an apology, because never did she utter the words, I apologize, I'm sorry. She just simply said, hey, I'm mentally ill and I had a breakdown, so that's why that happened, and I take full responsibility. Except for, you didn't really take responsibility because you didn't really apologize. So, maybe that's something to think about. Anyways, whenever I think about the publishing industry, I feel like bubbles of outrage. Like, one of the things that I say internally all the time is that there's too many people who think that they can write books, and not enough people who should be writing books having their books published. I think that a lot of people look at, book publishing as this activity that is necessary to sustain longevity. Everyone wants to be a writer or author a book so they can go out and say, I made this thing and this thing will live on after me. And because of that sort of vanity project, I become immediately suspicious of people who, it's not, I'm a writer and I love to write and I've always loved to write and I want to publish so that my work can be read. It's, I want to publish so that people remember me after I'm gone. And this is the same thing with people who have kids solely for the sake of some kind of legacy thing. It's just very narcissistic, and I get offended by it because writing for me has been a lifeline. It has been a form of self-expression. It has been a thing that has made me feel whole in times where I didn't, but I always had writing to fall back on and feel good about, even if the work never is seen by, the masses. Like, the craft itself has always been important to me. So when I see people who just like want to publish a book for the sake of publishing, it it kind of irritates me, because I feel like instead of doing that, maybe you should find a vocation or another way to cope with the terror. Or, was it? It's like a psychological term, like it's like terror threat management or something, where we are, as humans, the only species that is acutely aware that we will die someday. It's like animals like dogs and cats and such don't really have that experience. Like, they're just kind of living and then they die. They're not conscious that they're going to die, though I'm sure some like fanatics or like I don't know. At least that is the theory that was taught to me in college. Just like, because of that threat to our existence, because we're constantly aware of how time is not endless for us, we have to manage that feeling and mitigate that in ways that other species do not. And I feel like a lot of people do that by just trying to publish a book. And I'm saying, don't do that. Don't publish a book. Don't overclog the system that is already overclogged with, you know, books about nothing, and like books that are just, I don't know, just, I don't want to say that like worthless, but you know, when someone's written a vanity project, when you go into the self-help section of a bookstore or a bookshop, and it's just like these self-aggrandizing like white men, like, here's the key to life, and it's like, no, this isn't really the key to life. The key to life is you were born rich and you're gonna die rich, and you feel it's overly self-important because you've been convinced by your wealth that your experience in life is like some sort of necessary document for everyone else to consume, when most of the time it's not. And you know what? I won't even say in my own case that I need to publish work so that I can live on after I die. My perspective is I'm fine if my existence is insignificant in the grand scheme of life, because that is the case for most of us. Most of us won't be some sort of major historical figure. I think that I came to terms with that a long time ago. But my thing is, I never want to be mediocre. I'd rather be as great as I can be at writing, crafting, creating, than just to half-ass and mediocre my way through art and creation, because it's sacred. It's powerful. Art can change the world. And I just feel like wasting that on something that is ultimately a vanity project is silly. But back to the Kate woman. I think ultimately what we learn about society from that situation, especially now the people running to defend her, I feel like a lot of the people who are trying to defend her are essentially afraid of being canceled for similar reasons. And this is not to say that people have been canceled for less. They certainly have. I just feel like the idea of being canceled is not even like realistic in most situations. Like, first of all, people will be like, oh, such and such is canceled, and such and such probably still has a career, probably still is able to work. I mean, like, Louis C.K. is like still doing stand-up, so like, so much for cancel culture. But I do understand at least people on the left who become extremely afraid of being canceled, because we do have a tendency to infight over petty differences. Like, FD Signifier did a really good video about people who have been canceled, talking to various YouTube creators and, public figures about their drama of being canceled. And the drama of it all is that a lot of people just enjoy being able to take someone down a peg, being able to be like, well, you did this, so you're not as great as you think you are. I think I learned that lesson of there will always be someone being a hater for no reason, very acutely as a child, who is bullied by other kids, because there is this idea, and it's taught from adults, that if you can make people feel smaller than you, then you can thus have more space to take up. And some people just take up space because they feel like it's their right to do so. And we all do have a right to take up space. But it's kind of like their thought is that space is finite, and so if you are taking up space that I could be taking up, then I need to knock you down a peg to make sure that that space is reserved for me and me alone. It's gatekeeping, actually. That's like a new way to think about the word gatekeeping. Anyway, that's my thoughts for this week. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, come back. I should be on time next week for another Friday Pixel Thoughts and such. And unlike the last video, we'll actually finish the picture. So there you go. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.